pj-fleck-show is brought to you by Cub Foods and Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Minnesota. It's the pj-fleck-show with Hobie RT, Ron Johnson, and Justin Guard. Let's row the boat.
There's constantly learning moments around all of us. In this league, we've said it from day one. Anybody can beat you on any given Saturday. And that's why this whole thing with this team has been, you got to be humble enough to know that anybody can beat you when you do not play your best, but confident enough to know you can beat anybody when you are at your best. And through 7 games, we've seen that even with our football team. You know, we've had to learn the hard way. So again, you're constantly building this experience.
Well, that experience is certainly evolving this Gopher football team as they got a big win taking down the Terrapins last weekend as they now look forward to Northwestern this weekend. And we're here to chat about it on the PJ Fleck Show along with Gophers head coach PJ Fleck, former Gopher Ron Johnson, KFAN's Justin Guard. I'm Hobie Artigue. And coach, you said that your team would row after that game against Bowling Green, and it's led to 3 straight wins in a row. Another impressive game against Maryland. Do you feel like this team is really starting to hit a stride from what we've been seeing lately?
You know, what we keep talking to our players about is just the 1-0 championship seasons. That's it. We haven't looked too far ahead, haven't looked too far in the past. You know, we knew that after the Bowling Green game, like we said in that press conference, that we'd be humble enough to know that anybody can beat us and confident enough to know that we can beat anybody if we're at our best. And, you know, we've learned the hard way and got a chance to learn from other people as well. So, this team, you know, it takes a one-game mentality, does everything they can to be the best they can be on and off the field. We just got to continue to do that every single week.
Yeah, Coach, and every week you hear in the NFL, high school, college, whatever, it's established the run. And with another impressive, run game from your team after losing Mo, after losing Trey Potts, what's been so effective for this offensive, the running backs and the offensive line?
Well, I think in general, Ron, I think you're just finding ways to be able to win the football game. What does it take to win the football game? If it's going to take throwing the ball a lot more through the air to win the football game, then we're going to have to be able to do that, like we had to do in the Nebraska game. But if we have to be able to get on, keep it on the ground and make the game a lot shorter and be able to run the football efficiently, and this last game it was more than 5 yards a carry. I mean, why would you stick with that? So we got to be able to be balanced and be able to, whatever the game tells us that we're going to have to be able to do to win it, we have to be able to do that. You'd love it to be 50-50 across the board, but sometimes it isn't that way. And as we continue to go forward, we're just going to, make the best decisions that give us the best opportunities to win games, put the ball in the playmakers that are on our football team that give us the best chance to go win football games.
Well, Coach, you guys came out of the gates running, and you finished the game running the ball as well. And against Nebraska, it was really Bryce Williams getting the yards and a majority of the carries. But last week, it seemed like a reversal of sorts. Kai Thomas leading the way with 100-plus yards on the ground, then Bucko Irving with another 100, while Bryce Williams also contributed in a big way. And every guy, by the way, had a rushing touchdown too, JG.
That's a pair and a spare right there, and I want to start with the pair. I think that's who we're going to talk about first. But Kai Thomas is a guy we haven't talked a ton about on the show. He hadn't had a breakout performance like the one he had on this last Saturday. What stood out to you about Kai when you were recruiting him, and take us through how he has developed and what made him ready for such a breakout performance?
Yeah, well, first of all, guys like that can have success because of our offensive line, our tight ends, our wide receivers blocking, and everybody's just playing for each other. It's a very selfless team. And, the one thing that attracted us to Kai Thomas was, he ran for, 1,000 yards in high school or something like that. And to be able to do that, you got to be reliable. You got to be able to stay healthy. You got to be able to be consistent. And week in, week out, he was, every football player fights through different things, but he was really tough in high school. And, he loved to get the ball, and he loved to have a lot of carries. And, that type of mentality here at the University of Minnesota. A wonderful person. He's got a great personality as people continue to get to know him and get a chance to be around him and get to know the type of person Kai is. He's incredibly motivated. He's hungry and he's very confident as well. Success, the pair, really Mohammed and Trey, and the pair's not here anymore, right? The pair's on the sideline right now. But the spare in the air, they've had the opportunity to be able to provide, a lot of depth for us and really take advantage of their opportunities. But I can't say enough about the offensive line. Not only that, the way our defense is playing is allowing us to be able to run a certain type of offense and be able to keep the ball on the ground and make the game shorter because they played at a very high level. So, again, that's the complementary football we keep talking about.
Well, that was Kai. Bucko Irving, though, had a great game, too. I thought he was supposed to be the shifty guy, but he also apparently packs a mean stiff arm, too. We saw it on full display in that game against the Terps. He also had a 28-yard catch in the first half. Whenever you talk about that ability, what can that versatility help to do to really open things up on offense whenever you have a guy that can kind of do it all in the backfield?
Well, I think it's important to know that these guys are still getting better. I mean, they're not even close to reaching their peak. They're playing probably a lot earlier than they need to play and probably expected to play. They have the ability that they're so competitive. I think Kenny Burns does a great job of coaching our running backs and getting these guys prepared. But Bucko's a guy that, he came in here with the mindset he was ready to go and wanted to play. And we thought maybe we'd get him in 4 games and redshirt him. He's incredibly competitive. He's got a great personality, is always smiling. You talk about a young man who loves the game of football. He just loves to play. Every time you talk to him in recruiting, he was out playing, on the basketball courts. And he'd be playing some type of pickup football game. He'd be doing anything with a stick and ball type sport and just loved to be outside. You call him at any hour. He was always outside, always doing something. Wasn't on video games and stuff like that. He was always outside. Competing, and that's what we loved about him. And I think that's carrying over in what people are seeing right now in the short amount of time he's been playing.
Yeah, and talking about outside, let's go to the receiver who's outside, which is Chris Altman-Bell, and you look at his relationship with Tanner Morgan. Through Tyler Johnson, through the Rashad Bateman, Chris Altman-Bell has always been that piece that held that group together, and now he has his own relationship with Tanner. But how has their relationship, one, helped them, but then also for the other guys on the team to kind of see, this is what a real relationship looks like on and off the field?
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the head. Is that I think Tyler and Rashad kind of, I think Crab connected all that group together. And now that Crab's, the number one guy, it's now got to be able to do it in a reverse role of connecting the Michael Brown-Stevens and the Daniel Jacksons and the Dalen Wrights and the Brady Boyds and the Lecky Brockingtons and Brock Annexsteds. And he has taken on this incredible leadership role. And he's matured so much in the last year and really had to almost parent these young guys and lead them. And do it through his own personal struggle with injuries he's had all year. No one loves football more than Chris Altman-Bell. You talk about another guy who he's like Bucko, where he was, even the recruiting process, he just loved to play games. I mean, he was always outside. He was always playing, always competing. And that's what I love at the wide receiver position. And he's doing a really good job of leading those other guys in that right now.
One of the young guys is Michael Brown-Stevens, who's come on this year. Had a tough first half against Maryland with a few drops, but then responded in a big way with maybe your most explosive play in the second half with that catch and run. What type of response did you see from Michael Brown-Stevens, and is that part of developing to come back from certain failures?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about the beginning stages of somebody's career right now. Beginning stages where there's probably going to be a little bit more of the harder lessons to learn when you're really young, so you can build that leather skin. You can build that experience along with the successes and build yourself into this incredibly confident, well-oiled machine that's been weathered, that knows, how things, can affect you or how a drop affects a drive. But one thing about him is he just continues to respond and responds in the cultural way that he puts his head down and just continues to get better and practice really amazing practice habits. He is a guy who really has come on strong and maybe the most underrated player that we have. Be able to really kind of connect our offense, especially when Chris Altman-Bell was out.
Coach, switching to your defense, you touched on them earlier, but they're not just one of the best defenses in the Big Ten right now. You look across the country, and the Gophers are near the top in many statistical categories. Last year against Maryland, you guys gave up 700 or 600-plus yards in a very strange game with a lot of injuries in a COVID season. This year, the Terps just had 268 yards. You made some changes, some key additions. But does a performance like that from last weekend just prove that side of the ball has really developed and grown in a very short amount of time?
Yeah, in the first part of your question, I think it's very hard to compare anything to last year, no matter what. I mean, it's very difficult to be able to compare those things. And I don't, and we don't compare anything to really last year. We're comparing ourselves to how we were yesterday. And I think our defense has really taken on that mentality of that congruency, and that complementary football where, again, we talked last week about the D-line helping out the linebackers helping out the secondary linebackers helping out the D-line, and they're just playing together as a defense. And they have so much fun playing together. Win or lose or giving up yards, not giving up yards, they have so much fun. And they're playing with such a style that we really, want our identity to be, which is just, keep everything in front of us, limit explosive plays, stop the run, and just swarm around the football. And I think that's what they're doing right now. And we can get better. We know we have to get better. But there's a lot of guys making plays, not just the starting 11. We feel we have 22 starters on defense, and guys have opportunities to go in there and make plays. MJ Anderson's a great example of that behind Big O. So we have guys pretty much at every position that can go in there. Our depth's been tested in pretty much every position on this team this year, and we actually have some this year for one of the first times.
Yeah, Coach, when you look at Nyles Pinckney, I mean, one, he's wearing a number that makes him look smaller than he really is. And so when I'm seeing these single digits out there, I'm like, man, these kids like 250, and then you look them up and you're like, man, this kid's almost 300 pounds. But he's had a huge impact on the last 3 games. You look at the sack, you look at the forced fumble. I mean, the things that he's doing on the field, how has his addition been to this team?
Well, first of all, he was a 2-time captain at Clemson. I think that's very well documented. He came here to be able to have an opportunity to play and play a huge role, and I think that's paying off for him. He's always earned here, and I think that he's really grown up, matured, mastered the system, and again, it's having fun. This is still football. It's still a game. Best playing football is playing football on Saturdays and having fun with your teammates. But I think he's really kind of taken that model on and really just kind of been a great example for everybody of how to play on game day, how to have fun, how to enjoy yourself, and how to connect everybody. And I'm proud of his maturity and proud of his leadership, especially the last few weeks.
Coach, you mentioned how you was a captain at Clemson, and that's a team that's been in the national championship conversation the last few years. So that really shows how he is as a leader. But how have you seen him really take over as a leader, Nyles, in a very short amount of time with your team?
Well, I think he just has a great presence about himself. He's incredibly intelligent. He's been around, so he understands what works and what doesn't work. Got a chance to be able to help these young guys about telling them how special our place really is and how special our culture is, and really kind of bring some of those younger guys on that have good practice habits but maybe not elite practice habits yet, and really kind of take them from where they are to where they really want to be from a player's perspective, not just a coach but a player's perspective. And sometimes players will listen more to players than they'll listen to a coach because they're the ones that have to be down there in the trenches, and that's why it's so important to have a player-led team through the players. Is you want that message to be very consistent then from where it's coming from the top, whether it's players or coaches. You want that message to be very consistent across the board, and I think Nyles has done a very good job of that.
Well, the Gophers keep winning and now find themselves at the top of the division standings right now, along with Iowa. This after a crazy weekend for the Big Ten West. We'll chat about that and also what's to come against Northwestern. The last trip to Ryan Field was a success for the Gophers. How can they do it again this season? Much more coming up with the Gopher football head coach on the pj-fleck-show.
Let's row the boat. You're watching the pj-fleck-show.
Well, Coach, you said earlier in the season that everything was still in front of your team, and that's certainly true in the Big Ten standings. Right now, you guys are right with Iowa sitting at 3-1 in conference play, certainly taking care of business against Big Ten opponents as of late. Coach, I know your team is focused on yourselves as you cross the midway point of the season, but the Big Ten West is just wild to say the least. Illinois beats a top 10 team in 9 overtimes. Wisconsin beats Purdue, who they just beat Iowa. 4 of your next 5 games are against teams from the division. But after all that's happened, just how crazy has it been to see all of this unfold in the West?
And to be honest with you, we're focused on ourselves. As you hit right on you hit it right on the head. I mean, it's great for everybody else to see it and talk about it. Our guys are just so tunnel vision focused on ourselves. We have so much work to do. We have so many areas of improvement that we have to get better at. The old saying of everybody's got their own issues, and we've got to find a way to get better today more than we were yesterday, and just keep ourselves focused on the task at hand. And that's just getting better every single day. Might sound boring, might sound cliche, but this is all about the one-game championship seasons. And right now, the main focus is being 1-0 against Northwestern, who's very good, very well coached, disciplined football team. And somebody I have a lot of respect for, and Pat Fitzgerald leads them, and very similar qualities and type of football team this week.
Yeah, you talked about Pat Fitzgerald and this Northwestern team, and you didn't get to play them in 2020 due to COVID. But looking at the last time you played them in 2009, how similar is the team and how different are they from that 2019 team?
Well, I think you always know what to expect when you're getting a Pat Fitzgerald coach football team. He's been there for a long, long time and created an awesome culture and a really powerful culture. And they play incredibly hard. They're disciplined. They fly around on the football on defense. Doesn't matter who's in the game. They always play great defense. And then the offensive side of the ball, they've got playmakers, and they always have. So, I mean, you've got to find a way to be able to just play your best football game because you know they're going to be disciplined and they don't beat themselves. They really don't. And we've got to find a way to be at our best. And that's what this whole week has been about.
Certainly they want to run the ball like you do as well. Evan Hull is kind of their bell cow this season. We got a glimpse of him a couple of years ago. What stands out about him, and how do they try to run the ball?
Yeah, well, he's a really good football player. He's really fast. He's really explosive. He's played a lot of games for him. They do a lot of different things, a lot of shifts, a lot of motions. They do everything they can formationally to make your fits a little bit more difficult. But they mix it up a little bit. They want to, they're balanced too. They're not just going to run the football. Their screen game's really big. They run the football. They're down the field passing attack. They have no problem throwing the ball down the field. And again, we've got to play our best football. We know that, but we also know we're going to get their best football as well. And these are two disciplined football teams who like to do what they do. It's a typical Big Ten football game, where anybody can beat anyone on any given Saturday. We know that.
Now, Coach, Northwestern's played a few quarterbacks this year, but Ryan Helinski, he seems to be the guy they're sticking with right now. He's been asked to throw the ball, it seems like, more and more and more as he gets more time to play. From your preparation, what type of development have you seen him from game to game to game?
I think just consistency. I think he's got a way more consistent feel of the offense. He looks way more comfortable in the pocket. His completion percentage has gone up. And I think that they're doing a great job of scheming around him, and they got guys down the field that can go make plays. And so again, I mean, that's the best thing you can do as a coordinator, as a coach, is put your quarterback in position to be really successful. And the best thing that helps a quarterback is a good run game. And they've been able to do that against pretty much everybody they've played.
Yeah, Coach, and going into this stadium, I know you do a lot of preparation with your team when you're traveling on the road and home, but weather, you always make sure they're ready for that. And not to make a joke about their atmosphere, but I know being a player who's played there, to start the game off sometimes is like being in a library. I mean, literally, kids are reading books in the stands, and then in the second half, if they're in the game, then you start to feel that energy. So how do you help your players get ready to create their own energy walking into that game and start?
Well, I think part of job as a coach is to always prepare for whatever type of environment you're going into and practice those things and just make sure people always know. We study every place we go to. We talk to our players about every environment they're going to be in, what the stadium looks like. We always prepare for what the weather is going to be. We always give our players a weather report because I think that's important that, not that, you're going to necessarily do a ton of things different, but you make sure they know what they're going to be able to play in, and then you create that environment and practice the best you possibly can. So we always do that. We do everything we can to create some type of organized chaos and practice where they always have to be able to think on their feet and be able to react.
Well, still much more to come here on the PJ Fleck Show. It's Halloween week, so I'm sure we'll see some superhero costumes out there this weekend. But let me tell you, the Gophers have a real-life Iron Man. And that's O-lineman Connor Olson setting a school record over the weekend. An impressive feat from the Gopher up front. We talk about it when we return here on the PJ Fleck Show.
Welcome back to the PJ Fleck Show. Let's row the boat.
Well, Coach, Connor Olson, he's pretty much the epitome of consistency for your team. Last weekend, making his 52nd career start. That's a new Gophers record. Of course, he's been available and healthy, but just how important has Connor been to just the entire offense over the last few seasons as he's really set his mark on this offense?
Well, I think Connor's personality is really the identity of who we are up front. He's a really intelligent young man. He's played a ton of football, relies on his experience, and he's incredibly tough, which is going to make him an unbelievable doctor one day. And I mean, shoot, he might be some of our physicians. As we so that's a record that he should take a lot of pride in because, that talks about, really the trust people have in you and the ability to count on you in all types of moments and the ability to play through a lot of different things. And, he's just incredibly tough. I mean, he's what the game of football is all about. It's a record that's going to be very difficult to break. I think the person that can actually break it is Blaze Andrews if he comes back next year. So that's the big selling point for him. Right? Come break Connor's record and come back another year. But those are going to be records that are very, very difficult to break because, I mean, he might get to close to 60 games. And when you think about that, that's really difficult with the rules to be able to have that just over a course of a 4 to 5 year career. I think the COVID year kind of helped that as well. But he's a guy that's incredibly reliable, and he deserves a lot of credit for his entire career here.
Coach Keefe has been reliable as well. He's played a million games for you. We've talked a lot about his blocking. but has he been sneaking in workouts with Matt Simon? The catches that he's making, there's the one in Colorado, there's the one we're going to see here in a minute this past weekend. Has he been underutilized? I mean, should he have been getting Rashad Bateman reps at wide receiver the last few years?
No, don't tell him that. He's incredibly functional. You know, I mean, he can do everything. He can block, he can catch. He's deceivingly fast, you know, and I think he plays bigger than he is. Loves the game of football. You talk about a guy who's a football player. We talked about Connor Olson. Go Keefe is the epitome of what a football player really is, mentally, physically, emotionally. He's an example of what we want all Gopher football players to be. And he's a selfless guy who loves his role, loves his teammates, and, just loves being a Gopher. And we're so thankful he's here.
Coach, we're about a minute left. You got 30 seconds. What's your best candy? And do not say candy corn. And then what was your favorite costume as a kid?
Oh, Snicker bars for sure. I love Snicker bars. I'm oldie but a goodie, for sure. I usually have one at halftime every single game. I only remember one costume because I was like it for 5 years in a row. But I was, being from Chicago. I mean, that was when the Bears were really good and winning the Super Bowl. But I was Jim McMahon for like years in a row. I was pretty consistent back then. I stuck to what worked.
So you could do the Bear Shuffle?
Oh, the
Super Bowl Shuffle.
Super Bowl Shuffle. Oh,
did you have the
I
glasses
had the record.
too?
I played that record all the time.
Did you have the glasses too?
Oh yeah. I mean, there's pictures online. I'm sure you can find it.
We'll be looking, or maybe we just make a call down back home and we try to get some on the show next year.
Whatever you guys want. Hey, it's your show. I'm just here.
Your name's on the show, though, and thank you as always for joining us. Appreciate it.
Candy corn is the worst.
Listen, my name came down. Ron's name actually came down.
Until the candy
corn.
Candy corn is
really
elite, man. You got to stop sleeping on candy corn.
That'll do it for this edition of the PJ Fleck Show. We'll see you next week.